Claire Benson, a determined diner owner, trusted a stranger to save her father's legacy. When she discovered he was a millionaire trying to take everything, his shocking act of redemption left her questioning everything she knew. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from, comment below. The coffee maker sputters its last breath as Claire Benson unlocks Benson's diner, the key catching in the worn lock. Cold morning air sneaks through the gap beneath the door, carrying the scent of approaching autumn. She pauses in the doorway, letting her eyes adjust to the dim interior where shadows stretch across scratched linoleum floors and faded red booths. Her father's photograph watches from behind the counter, his smile frozen in better days. Claire straightens her spine, squaring her shoulders against the weight of empty tables and mounting bills. "I've got this, Dad," she whispers, but the words echo hollow in the pre-dawn quiet. The ancient coffee maker chooses this moment to die completely, emitting one final wheeze before the heating element goes dark. Claire's fingers curl against her palm. The replacement part she ordered sits unopened on her desk upstairs, next to a stack of unpaid invoices she can't quite bring herself to open. The bell above the door chimes and Mrs. Hargrove shuffles in, right on schedule. Her coral lipstick is slightly crooked, but her eyes are sharp as ever. "Morning, dear. The usual?" "Of course." Claire manages a smile, already reaching for the manual pour-over setup she keeps as backup. The ritual of measuring grounds and heating water gives her hands something to focus on, besides the tremor that threatens whenever she thinks too hard about the diner's books. Steam rises from the ceramic filter as Claire pours in careful circles, the rich aroma of fresh coffee temporarily masking the mustiness of aging upholstery and dreams gone stale. She slides the finished cup across the counter, earning an approving nod from Mrs. Hargrove. "Just like your father used to make it," the older woman says, wrapping arthritic fingers around the warm mug. "He'd be proud, you know." Claire swallows hard against the sudden tightness in her throat. "Thanks, Mrs. H." She turns away, busying herself with wiping down already clean counters. The morning light streaming through dusty blinds catches on the hairline cracks spreading through the diner's walls like a roadmap of better days. The breakfast rush arrives in fits and starts. Tom pausing between mail routes, Edith fresh from her morning walk, Jackie grading papers between bites of wheat toast. Claire moves between tables with practiced efficiency, her hands remembering steps her mind is too tired to track. Pour coffee, flip pancakes, refill syrup dispensers that never quite close properly anymore. "Business picking up any?" Tom asks as she tops off his coffee. His eyes flick to the empty booths lining the walls, telling Claire he already knows the answer. She shrugs, aiming for casual. "You know how it goes. Summer's always slow." But summer ended 3 weeks ago, and the autumn chill hasn't brought the customers back. Across the street, the new chain restaurant's parking lot overflows with shiny SUVs and soccer mom minivans. Their sign promises authentic small-town charm with corporate efficiency. Everything Claire's diner actually has, packaged in a shinier wrapper with better profit margins. The bell chimes again, and Claire looks up from wiping down the counter. The man who enters doesn't belong here. Everything about him is too polished for the diner's worn edges, from his carefully casual button-down to the way he surveys the room with keen eyes that miss nothing. His posture screams big city, but he moves with the easy confidence of someone used to fitting in anywhere. He slides onto a stool at the counter, and Claire raises an eyebrow at him. "We don't serve 5-star meals here, if that's what you're looking for." He laughs, the sound warm and genuine enough to catch her off guard. "Maybe I'm just looking for the best cup of coffee in town." "Then you're in luck." Claire reaches for the pour-over setup again, hiding her wince at having to admit the main machine is broken. The commercial stuff across the street tastes like burnt rubber. "I noticed that place." His eyes track her movements as she measures the grounds. "Seems to be doing well. If you like your breakfast with a side of corporate soul-crushing, sure." The words come out sharper than intended, and Claire forces herself to take a breath. But their eggs come from a powder and their pancakes taste like cardboard. Speaking from experience? Speaking from having standards. She sets his coffee in front of him, daring him to complain about the manual brewing method. Instead, He takes a careful sip and lets out an appreciative hum that sounds almost genuine. Now that, he says, is what coffee should taste like. He extends his hand across the counter. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Clark. Claire eyes his hand for a moment before wiping her palm on her apron and accepting the handshake. His grip is firm but not overwhelming, his skin smooth against her calloused fingers. Claire Benson. But you probably got that from the sign outside. Family business? Something like that. Claire turns away, suddenly uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. The morning light catches the dust motes dancing around him, and for a moment she sees her diner through his eyes. The peeling paint, the flickering light fixtures, the general air of gentle decay that no amount of scrubbing seems to erase. You know, Ethan says, his voice carefully casual. With a few tweaks, this place could really draw a crowd. Claire's spine stiffens. Thanks, but I didn't ask for advice. She grabs a rag and starts wiping down the already clean counter, needing something to do with her hands. Especially not from someone who just walked in 5 minutes ago. No offense. The corner of his mouth quirks up. Just an observation. Right. Because what this place really needs is another person telling me how to run it better. Claire gestures to the flickering overhead light. Let me guess. Some new fixtures, a fresh coat of paint, maybe some trendy menu items to appeal to the Instagram crowd? Actually, I was thinking more along the lines of highlighting what makes this place special. Ethan's voice stays infuriatingly calm. The personal touch, the real coffee, the history. People pay good money for authentic experiences these days. They pay better money for drive-through windows and loyalty apps. Claire doesn't bother hiding the bitterness in her voice. In case you hadn't noticed, authenticity doesn't pay the bills. Something flickers in Ethan's eyes. Guilt? Sympathy? But it's gone before Claire can be sure. He takes another sip of coffee, studying her over the rim of the mug. Maybe you're just not marketing it right. I didn't realize I was serving Gordon Ramsay. Claire snags his empty plate, stacking it with more force than necessary. Tell me, do you always offer unsolicited business advice to strangers? Or am I just special? The words come out with an edge of flirtation she hadn't intended, and heat creeps up her neck. But Ethan just grins, apparently unfazed by her sharp tongue. Maybe I just hate seeing potential go to waste. Before Claire can respond, the kitchen timer buzzes. She escapes to check on a batch of muffins, grateful for the excuse to put some distance between herself and those two observant eyes. Through the kitchen window, she watches Ethan pull out his phone, his expression shifting from casual to focused as he scrolls through something on the screen. Later, after the lunch rush dies down and the diner empties out, Claire finds herself thinking about Ethan's words. The afternoon sun slants through grimy windows, highlighting every imperfection she's been trying to ignore. The vinyl booths are cracked, the menus are dog-eared, and the whole place has the tired feel of something that's been hanging on too long by pure stubbornness. She drops into a chair, finally letting her shoulders sag. The weight of unpaid bills and dwindling customers presses down like a physical thing, threatening to crush what's left of her father's dream. Across the street, the chain restaurant's parking lot is still full, their efficient service and standardized menu drawing crowds while her tables sit empty. The door chimes again, and Claire looks up to see Maggie, her best friend and owner of the flower shop 2 blocks down. One look at Claire's face, and Maggie's expression softens. That bad, huh? I'm scared, Mags. The words slip out before Claire can stop them. This was Dad's dream. I can't let it end like this. She blinks hard against the burning in her eyes. But I don't know how much longer I can keep throwing good money after bad. Maggie slides into the booth across from her, reaching across the table to squeeze Claire's hand. Have you considered? If you're about to suggest selling, don't. Claire pulls her hand back. I'm not giving up. Not yet. Outside, a sleek rental car idles in the parking lot. Through the windshield, Claire catches a glimpse of Ethan, his expression troubled as he stares at something on his tablet. For a moment, their eyes meet through the glass, and something electric passes between them. Then he starts the engine and pulls away, leaving Claire alone with her thoughts and the ghost of her father's dreams. The dinner rush comes and goes, more of a trickle than a rush these days. Claire moves through the motions of closing, wiping tables, counting the register, trying not to compare today's numbers with last year's. The bell chimes one last time, and she looks up to find Ethan standing in the doorway again. "We're closed," she says, but makes no move to chase him out. "What if I told you I could help turn this place around?" He steps inside, letting the door swing shut behind him. The fading daylight catches the earnest expression on his face, making him look younger somehow, more vulnerable. Claire lets out a dry laugh. "You've got a business degree tucked in that jacket?" Something like that. He moves closer, his confidence tempered by something that looks almost like hope. "Look, I know you don't know me and you have no reason to trust my advice, but I've seen places like this before. With the right approach, community events, signature dishes, better marketing, this place could be everything it used to be. More, even." "Why would you want to help me?" Claire studies his face, looking for the catch, the hidden agenda. Everyone wants something, in her experience. The trick is figuring out the price before you agree to pay it. Ethan shrugs, but there's something careful in the gesture, like he's holding back. "Maybe I like a good underdog story." Claire looks around the diner. Her father's legacy, her responsibility, her anchor and her wings all at once. The evening light softens its rough edges, making it easy to imagine what it could be with the right help. But pride is a hard thing to swallow, and trust doesn't come easily these days. Finally, she nods, the motion small and uncertain. "Okay, but no promises." "No promises," Ethan agrees, but his smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. In the gathering darkness, shadows play across his face, hiding whatever truth might be written there. Claire doesn't know it yet, but this moment, this simple agreement between strangers, will change everything. The web of lies and truth they're about to weave will test them both in ways neither expects. But for now, there's just the quiet of a closing diner, the lingering smell of coffee, and the weight of decisions that can't be unmade. Claire crouches beneath the counter, cursing under her breath as cold water drips onto her shoulder. The pipe's steady leak echoes in the pre-dawn silence, each drop a reminder of everything falling apart. Her fingers fumble with the wrench, knuckles white against the rust-spotted metal. The bell chimes. Claire's head jerks up, connecting with the underside of the counter. "We're closed," she calls out, voice sharp with pain and frustration. "Good thing I'm not here as a customer." Ethan's voice carries across the empty diner, followed by the solid thunk of what sounds like a toolbox hitting the counter above her. Claire slides out from under the sink, wiping damp hands on her already soaked jeans. "What are you doing here?" The neon sign outside flickers, casting alternating shadows across Ethan's face as he rolls up his sleeves. The motion reveals unexpectedly strong forearms marked with old calluses, hands that have seen real work, not just boardrooms and spreadsheets. "Looks like you could use a hand." His smile holds a teasing edge that makes Claire's jaw clench. He kneels beside her, close enough that she catches a hint of coffee and something woodsy. "Unless you're enjoying your morning shower?" "I can handle a leaky pipe." But she shifts aside when he reaches for the wrench, their fingers brushing. The contact sends an unwanted spark up her arm. Ethan examines the pipe, his expression shifting from playful to focused. "The threading stripped. You'll need to replace this section entirely." He glances at her. "Let me guess, you've been tightening it every morning?" "Only for the past week." Claire watches his hands work, noting the confident way he handles the tools. "Where'd you learn plumbing? Don't tell me they teach that in business school." "Summer jobs through college. My uncle ran a handyman service." He grunts, wrestling with a particularly stubborn connection. Not all of us were born with silver spoons. The admission surprises her. Claire studies his profile, catching glimpses of something familiar in the determined set of his jaw, the careful precision of his movements. He works with the same intensity she brings to her kitchen, the mark of someone who learned early that nothing comes easy. "Hand me that pipe joint." When she passes it, their fingers brush again. This time, neither pulls away quite as quickly. "The diner's bones are good," he says, voice muffled as he works. "Just needs some attention in the right places. Like this copper line, original to the building probably. Quality work, but everything needs maintenance eventually." "Planning to add plumbing consultant to your resume?" "Just pointing out potential." He tightens the final connection, then runs water through the pipe. The leak has stopped. Speaking of which, have you considered updating your menu fonts? Claire blinks at the sudden shift. My menu fonts? They're dated. Hard to read in low light. A cleaner typeface would make the specials pop, draw attention to your signature dishes. He wipes his hands on a rag, leaving smudges of grime on the crisp cotton. Small change, big impact. You got all that from one visit? I notice things. His eyes meet hers, unexpectedly earnest. Like how this place is the heart of the community. How much pride you take in every detail. It deserves to shine. Something in his voice makes Claire's throat tight. She turns away, busying herself with the coffee maker. Want a cup? Least I can do for the free plumbing work. Love one. He settles onto a stool, watching as she measures beans into the grinder. You know, a few fresh coats of paint would brighten. Don't push your luck. But Claire finds herself smiling as she pours hot water over the grounds. Steam rises between them, carrying the rich scent of possibility. They drink in comfortable silence, the sky outside gradually lightening. Claire studies him over the rim of her mug. This puzzle of a man who shows up at dawn with a toolbox and business advice. Maybe you're not just a know-it-all after all. Ethan chuckles, but something flickers in his eyes. Guilt? Regret. Before she can puzzle it out, he's setting down his empty mug. High praise. I'll take it. Morning sun streams through the blinds, catching dust motes that dance around them like falling stars. For a moment, Claire lets herself believe in second chances, in helpful strangers and fresh starts and pipes that don't leak. Then Ethan's phone buzzes and reality intrudes. He checks the screen, his expression clouding. Everything okay? Fine. He tucks the phone away too quickly. Just work. He stands, gathering his tools. See you around, Claire. She watches him go, unable to shake the feeling that he's carrying more than just a toolbox as he walks away. The bell chimes his exit, and Claire turns back to her morning prep, trying to ignore how the diner feels colder without him in it. The neon sign flickers once more, then steadies, glowing strong and sure in the growing light. A little higher on the left. Claire steadies the ladder as Ethan adjusts the hand-painted banner. Community Appreciation Night stretches across the diner's entrance in careful brushstrokes, the letters gleaming wet in the afternoon sun. Fairy lights snake between old photographs of her father, Frank Benson, his smile preserved behind dusty glass. There? Ethan leans back, sleeves smudged with blue paint that matches the shadows under his eyes. He's been here since dawn, helping hang decorations and rearrange tables for the evening crowd. Perfect. Claire steps back to survey their work. Folding tables line the sidewalk, dressed in checkered cloths that flutter in the autumn breeze. The diner's windows shine, every surface scrubbed until the glass practically sparkles. Even the ancient neon sign seems to glow brighter, as if sensing the occasion. The first guests arrive as sunset paints the sky in shades of amber and rose. Tom parks his mail truck across the street, while Mrs. Hargrove makes her way down the sidewalk, arm linked with her granddaughters. More families follow, filling the air with chatter and laughter. In the corner, Jimmy Chen from the music store unpacks his guitar, soft chords mixing with the sizzle of burgers on the grill. The smell of fresh pies wafting from the kitchen draws appreciative murmurs from the growing crowd. Remember coming here after Little League games? Claire overhears Tom telling his son, your grandpa and Frank Benson would argue baseball stats for hours while we demolished those chocolate shakes. Best shakes in 3 counties, Mrs. Hargrove adds, patting Claire's hand. Still are, dear. Your father would be proud. The words catch in Claire's chest like a fishhook. She turns away, blinking hard, and nearly collides with Ethan. His hands steady her shoulders, warm through the thin fabric of her shirt. You okay? Fine. She gestures at the crowd, forcing brightness into her voice. They're actually coming. Your crazy idea worked. Our idea. Ethan's eyes crinkle at the corners when he smiles. A real smile, not his usual polished grin. Though I take full credit for the fairy lights. Claire watches him work the room, moving easily between clusters of people. He has a gift for it, drawing out stories and laughs, making each person feel heard. Occasionally, his gaze finds hers across the crowd, and something warm unfurls in her chest. But as the night winds down and Claire counts the register receipts in her office, reality crashes back. The drawer holds enough to cover maybe a week's expenses, a drop in the ocean of debt threatening to drown her. It's not enough, is it? The words taste bitter on her tongue. Ethan's hand lands on her shoulder, solid and warm. It's a step forward. Don't give up now. She wants to believe him, but the stack of unpaid bills on her desk tells a different story. The letter arrives on a Tuesday, buried between junk mail and supplier invoices. Claire reads it 3 times, the words blurring together: debt consolidation and single entity acquisition and immediate action required. Her hands shake as she spreads the paper on her father's old desk. Someone's buying up her debts. All of them. The realization sits like ice in her stomach. Whoever it is, they want this place. The whisper echoes in the empty office. Claire's fist connects with the desk, pain shooting up her arm as a tear slides down her cheek. Morning brings Ethan and more questions than answers. Claire thrusts the letter at him, watching his face for any reaction. Someone's trying to squeeze me out. I know it. He swallows hard, something flickering behind his eyes before his expression smooths into careful neutrality. It might just be a standard consolidation. Let's not jump to conclusions. You always seem to have answers for everything. Claire studies him, doubt creeping in like morning fog. There's something in the careful way he holds himself, the slight tension around his mouth. Let's focus on what we can control. Ethan pulls out his phone, all business now. I've been working on some marketing ideas. If we can boost revenue quickly, right? Claire turns away, unable to shake the feeling that she's missing something important. Because better Instagram posts will solve everything. Ethan's knuckles whiten around his phone. He stares at the screen like it holds answers to questions he can't voice. The ancient stove picks Saturday's lunch rush to die. Claire smells burning before she sees smoke curling from beneath the burners. No, no, no. She bangs on the temperature dial, but the heating element stays resolutely dark. Orders pile up. The kitchen temperature rises. Sweat trickles down Claire's spine as she juggles half-cooked meals and increasingly impatient customers. Order up, Tom calls from the counter, adding 3 more tickets to the disaster. Something inside Claire snaps. Of course this piece of junk quits now. Her voice cracks as she slams her palm against the stove's surface. Just like everything else in this goddamn place. The kitchen blurs through tears she refuses to let fall. She sinks onto a stool, defeat crushing the air from her lungs. Maybe it's time to let go. Movement beside her. Ethan's presence fills her peripheral vision as he takes charge, his voice carrying clearly to the dining room. Folks, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Your patience is appreciated. Coffee and pie are on the house while we sort things out. Then he's kneeling beside her, one hand cupping her cheek. His thumb brushes away a smudge of grease, or maybe a tear. You're not giving up. Not today. Claire looks up, meeting his gaze. The kitchen feels suddenly too small, too warm. Everything narrows to this moment. His hand on her skin, the concern in his eyes, the way he smells of coffee, and something uniquely him. Neither is sure who moves first. Their lips meet in a desperate clash of need and fear and unspoken truths. Ethan's hands tangle in her hair as Claire grabs his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss tastes of coffee and possibilities and lies waiting to be uncovered. They break apart, both breathing hard. Claire searches Ethan's face, seeing guilt shadow his features before he can hide it. He steps back, hand falling to his side. Claire, don't. She turns away, straightening her apron with trembling hands. We should check on the customers. But as Ethan walks away, shoulders tight with unspoken words, Claire can't shake the feeling that she's just kissed a man carrying secrets that could destroy everything. The coffee maker sputters as Claire measures grounds with trembling fingers. Steam rises from the ceramic filter as she pours in careful circles, focusing on the rhythm to steady her nerves. The loan documents spread across the counter mock her with their impenetrable legal language. Each page represents another link in the chain of debt threatening to drag her father's legacy under. Afternoon sunlight filters through dusty blinds, casting long shadows across the scuffed linoleum. The smell of bacon grease and coffee hangs heavy in the air, mingling with the musty scent of aging upholstery. Claire glances at the stack of papers again, her stomach churning. The numbers blur together, each figure larger than the last. The bell above the door chimes. Claire looks up to see Ethan striding in, manila envelope tucked under his arm. His jaw is tight, shoulders rigid beneath his crisp button-down. Something flickers across his face, guilt, uncertainty, before his usual easy smile slides into place. "Special delivery," he says, setting the envelope on the counter. His voice sounds strained despite the casual words. Claire's heart stutters. "The loan?" Ethan nods. "It came through. Should cover the new stove and repairs." Claire reaches for the envelope, her fingers brushing his. An electric current zips up her arm at the contact. She jerks back, clutching the envelope to her chest. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to." Ethan's voice drops low, intimate. His eyes lock onto hers with an intensity that makes her breath catch. The walls Claire built around her heart crack a little more. A real smile tugs at her lips, vulnerable and grateful. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Ethan's face tightens for a fraction of a second. He reaches out, cupping her hand in his. His palm is warm, slightly calloused, not the soft hands she'd expect from a businessman. "You won't have to find out." The words hang between them, heavy with promise. Claire's chest aches with something that feels dangerously like hope. The timer in the kitchen buzzes, shattering the moment. Claire reluctantly pulls away. "I should start prep for dinner." Ethan nods, dropping his hand. As Claire heads for the kitchen, his phone buzzes. He steps outside, leaving Claire to sort through vegetables for the evening rush. Through the window, she watches him pace the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear. His shoulders hunch forward, free hand gesturing sharply. The afternoon sun catches his profile, highlighting the tension in his jaw. Claire can't hear the conversation, but she sees the moment something changes. Ethan's spine goes rigid. His hand drops to his side, curling into a fist. When he hangs up, he stares at the diner's faded sign for a long moment before muttering something to himself. The vegetables forgotten, Claire watches him through the glass. Something feels off, but she can't put her finger on what. Before she can analyze it further, Mrs. Hargrove's familiar Buick pulls into the lot and Claire forces herself back to work. The evening crawls by in fits and starts. Claire moves through her routine on autopilot, refilling coffee cups, calling orders to the kitchen, wiping down already clean counters. But her mind keeps drifting to the loan documents, to Ethan's strange behavior, to the way his hands felt on hers. After the last customer leaves, Claire finds Ethan in the back office. He's hunched over the desk, sorting through paperwork. His leather satchel sits unzipped beside him, papers spilling onto the scratched wooden surface. "Need any help?" Claire asks, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Ethan starts shuffling papers together. "No, just organizing some things." A familiar logo catches Claire's eye, Sterling Financial's blood-red letterhead peeking out from beneath a stack of documents. Her brow furrows. She steps closer, drawn by an instinct she can't name. "What's that?" She reaches for the papers before Ethan can stop her. Time slows as Claire flips through the stack. Each page hits her like a physical blow. Acquisition reports, debt consolidation forms, shell company documentation, all bearing Sterling Financial's logo. Her hands shake as understanding dawns. The mysterious entity buying her debts, the sudden loan approval, Ethan's inexplicable desire to help. It was all a lie. It was you. The words come out as a whisper, raw with betrayal. Ethan's face drains of color. "Claire, let me explain." She continues reading, bile rising in her throat. A report detailing Sterling's aggressive debt collection practices catches her eye. Dates jump out at her, matching perfectly with her father's decline. With his final, desperate days, you knew. Claire's voice rises, trembling with fury. "You knew they were killing my father, and you still walked in here, pretending to help me?" Memories flood back, her father's haunted eyes, the endless phone calls, the way he seemed to shrink into himself as the debts mounted. Frank Benson, who'd never backed down from a challenge in his life, crushed beneath the weight of corporate greed. Claire's grief ignites into white-hot rage. She slams the papers onto the desk. "You were never here to help. You were here to finish the job. It's not like that." Ethan steps forward, desperation etched across his face. "I didn't know it was your father. I didn't know until it was too late." Claire's hands shake as she backs away from him. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper. "Everything was a lie. Every smile, every promise, you played me." Tears stream down her face, but her eyes blaze with defiance. She watches Ethan's heart shatter as the walls around her own slam back into place, stronger than before. "Please, Claire." Ethan's voice breaks. "I care about you. That was real." Claire laughs, the sound hollow and bitter. How can I believe a word you say? She steps aside, pointing to the door. Get out. Ethan hesitates, searching her face for any trace of forgiveness. He finds none. Claire's jaw clenches, her eyes cold and unyielding. I never want to see you again. Ethan swallows hard. His shoulders slump as he walks to the door. The bell jingles one final time as he steps into the night, the weight of his actions pressing him into the darkness. Alone in the empty diner, Claire sinks to the floor. She clutches the damning papers to her chest as sobs rack her body. The dream she fought so hard to protect crumbles to ash. Her father's legacy, her trust, her heart, all shattered by the man she'd foolishly allowed herself to love. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows across the wreckage of her world. Outside, a car starts up and drives away. Claire doesn't look up to watch Ethan leave. She stays curled on the floor, surrounded by the proof of his betrayal, until the first rays of dawn creep through the blinds. Light streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sterling Financial's 42nd floor, painting golden stripes across Ethan's mahogany desk. The termination document sits before him, stark black text on crisp white paper. His fingers hover over the signature line as voices from the morning's executive meeting echo in his mind. You're making a mistake, Damon had said, voice sharp with warning. This isn't just about one small-town diner, Lay. This is about everything we've built. Ethan's hand trembles slightly as he picks up his pen. The weight of a decade's worth of acquisitions, promotions, and carefully cultivated relationships settles on his shoulders. He thinks of Claire's face when she'd learned the truth, the way hurt and betrayal had transformed her features into something he barely recognized. The pen touches paper. Ethan signs with quick, decisive strokes, each letter a step away from the life he'd spent years building. His heart pounds against his ribs, but underneath the fear lies something lighter. Relief, maybe. Or hope. He finds Damon in the corner office, backlit by the city skyline. His former mentor's jaw tightens at the sight of the papers in Ethan's hand. So that's it? Damon's voice carries the weight of disappointed expectations. You're throwing away everything we built over some random diner? It was never about the diner. Ethan meets Damon's gaze steadily. This is about who I want to be. And who's that? Damon's laugh holds no humor. Some small-town hero? Wake up, Ethan. You're one of us. Not anymore. Ethan turns and walks out, leaving behind corner offices and seven-figure bonuses, algorithmic efficiency, and calculated devastation. Each step down the marble hallway feels like breaking free of chains he hadn't known he wore. Later that night, his apartment feels different. Emptier, maybe, despite the sleek furniture and carefully curated art. Or perhaps just more honest. Ethan spreads blueprints and financial documents across his glass coffee table, the soft glow of his laptop casting shadows across projections and proposals. His phone buzzes with another message from the local Chamber of Commerce. They're interested in the fundraiser idea, a celebration of community landmarks with Benson's Diner as the centerpiece. The events coordinator is enthusiastic about combining local music, art installations, and food vendors. It's exactly what this town needs, she'd said. Ethan's gaze catches on a photograph tucked into one of the diner's original blueprints. Claire and Frank Benson stand behind the counter, both wearing matching grins and flour-dusted aprons. The date stamp places it just months before Frank's death, before Sterling Financial's aggressive debt consolidation had pushed him past his breaking point. I'm so sorry, Claire, Ethan whispers to the empty room. This is the least I can do. His laptop chimes with another email confirmation. The local jazz quartet is in, so are the high school art club and 3 different bakeries. The pieces are falling into place, a pattern of redemption taking shape. If only it doesn't come too late. Morning light filters through dusty blinds as Maggie Carter bursts through the diner's door, the bell's cheerful jingle at odds with Claire's startled expression. Maggie clutches a bright flyer in one hand, her face flushed with excitement. Claire, you have to see this. She spreads the paper across the counter, barely missing a coffee mug. The whole town's coming together. This fundraiser could save everything. Claire's hands still on the cloth she'd been using to wipe down the counter. Her eyes scan the flyer, taking in the bold text. Save Benson's Diner, a community celebration. Something cold settles in her stomach as she recognizes the careful planning, the strategic thinking behind each detail. This is his doing, isn't it? The cloth twists between her fingers. Ethan? Does it matter? Maggie's enthusiasm dims slightly. Claire, everyone wants to help. The music school, the art club, even old Mr. Peterson with his terrible poetry. They're all participating. I don't want charity. Claire's voice comes out harder than intended. And I definitely don't want help from him. It's not about Ethan Clark. Maggie reaches across the counter, trying to catch Claire's eye. It's about your father's dream. It's about this place and what it means to all of us. If I accept his help, even indirectly. Claire's voice catches. She swallows hard before continuing. It's like admitting he was right, like everything Dad built wasn't strong enough to stand on its own. Your father would want the diner to survive, Maggie says softly. He'd want you to fight for it, no matter what. Claire turns away, unable to meet her friend's concerned gaze. Her eyes burn with unshed tears, pride and grief warring in her chest. The morning sun catches on the worn linoleum, highlighting every scratch and scuff, years of history written in the floor's imperfections. Outside the community center, canvas tents bloom like spring flowers. Volunteers string lights between poles, while local artists arrange their work on borrowed easels. The air fills with the mingled scents of baked goods and grilling meat, punctuated by bursts of laughter and snatches of live music. But the central tent, the one meant for Benson's diner, stands empty. A hand-painted banner flutters in the breeze, the words "Home Cooking and History" casting shifting shadows on the unoccupied space below. Where is she? Someone in the growing crowd asks. Isn't Claire Benson coming? Enthusiasm wanes as the afternoon wears on. People drift between booths, but their smiles carry an edge of uncertainty. The empty tent looms like an unanswered question, a hole in the heart of the celebration. Ethan watches from the shadow of an oak tree, his stomach twisting. He'd known it was a long shot, but seeing the gap where Claire should be makes it real in a way spreadsheets and projections never could. His hands curl into fists at his sides. I thought this would be enough, he mutters. The words taste bitter, like failure, like giving up. The crowd continues to thin as sunset approaches. Ethan turns away, unable to watch the careful plans crumble. Maybe this is his punishment, to finally try to do the right thing, only to have it fall apart, to lose her forever. The bell above the diner's door chimes again, this time with force. Claire looks up to find Maggie silhouetted against the evening light, her normally cheerful face set in lines of determination. What are you doing, Claire? Maggie's voice carries an edge Claire's never heard before. Letting your pride ruin everything your father worked for. Claire's eyes widen. You don't understand. No. Maggie cuts her off, voice softening, but no less intense. You don't understand. You're so afraid of being betrayed again that you're betraying yourself. Before Claire can respond, Maggie pulls out her phone and pushes it across the counter. A news article fills the screen. The headlines stark against the white background. Ethan Clark resigns from Sterling Financial, rejects acquisition deal. Claire's hands shake as she reads further. The article details not just Ethan's resignation, but his complete separation from the firm. He'd walked away from the acquisition deal, effectively destroying his own career in the process. He gave it all up for you, Claire. Maggie's voice gentles further. He's trying to fix his mistakes. Why didn't he tell me? The words come out as barely more than a whisper, because he didn't want you to feel obligated. A small smile touches Maggie's lips. He wanted you to make your own choice. Claire stares at the article until the words blur. Her heart pounds against her ribs as understanding floods in. Ethan's actions weren't manipulation or a ploy for forgiveness. They were sacrifice. Atonement. A tear rolls down her cheek, dropping onto the phone screen. Claire wipes it away with trembling fingers. Your father always said the measure of a person isn't in never making mistakes, Maggie says quietly. It's in how they try to make things right. Claire straightens, squaring her shoulders. Something shifts in her chest, the weight of pride and pain giving way to something lighter, something like hope. It's time to fight for this place, she says, reaching for her apron. For Dad, for myself, and for all the people who believe in us. Maggie's grin breaks through like sunshine after rain. She grabs Claire's hand, squeezing tight. Then let's go show them what Benson's diner is made of. Claire lets herself be pulled toward the door, toward whatever comes next. The evening light streams through the windows, catching on her father's photograph behind the counter. For a moment, she could swear his smile looks different. Proud, maybe, or forgiving. Claire stands in the dim light of Benson's diner, her father's photograph watching her from behind the counter. The ancient refrigerator hums in the background, a familiar sound that's accompanied every major decision she's made since taking over. Her fingers trace the edge of the worn frame, catching on the spots where the wood has started to splinter. Frank Benson's smile seems different tonight, less of an accusation and more of a question. What are you going to do now? The answer sits heavy in her chest, pressed between pride and practicality. Claire's fists clench at her sides, knuckles white with tension. "I can't let you down, Dad," she whispers, but the words feel hollow in the empty diner. Her reflection wavers in the darkened window, overlaying her father's photograph like a double exposure. The same stubborn jaw, the same determined set to the shoulders. But where Frank Benson's eyes held warmth, Claire sees only exhaustion in her own. The fundraiser's already started. She can hear distant music drifting from the park, carried on the evening breeze. Somewhere in that crowd, Ethan Clark is waiting. The thought sends a fresh surge of anger through her veins, hot and familiar. But beneath it lurks something else, something that feels dangerously like hope. Claire yanks her apron off its hook, the familiar motion grounding her. The fabric is worn soft with use, carrying the scent of coffee and cinnamon that seems permanently woven into its fibers. She ties it with sharp, efficient movements, muscle memory taking over where courage fails. "You're not actually wearing that to the fundraiser, are you?" Claire spins to find Maggie in the doorway, backlit by the setting sun. Her best friend's expression is gentle but knowing, like she can read every doubt written across Claire's face. Claire's fingers twist in the apron strings. "I don't know what I'm doing, Mags." "Yes, you do." Maggie crosses the room, her heels clicking against the linoleum. She stops in front of Claire, hands on her hips. "You're fighting for your dad's legacy, for your community, for yourself. By forgiving the man who helped destroy it all, by being bigger than your anger." Maggie's hand finds Claire's shoulder, squeezing gently. "And you're not alone in this fight. Look." Through the window, Claire catches glimpses of people heading toward the park. Tom from the post office walking with his wife, Mrs. Hargrove moving slowly but steadily with her cane, Jackie from the school herding a group of teenagers who actually seem excited to help. "They're not here for him," Maggie says softly. "They're here for you, for this place." Claire's throat tightens. She looks back at her father's photograph, searching for answers in that familiar smile. What would he say about all this? About Ethan's betrayal, about the community rallying around them, about her own stubborn pride threatening to burn it all down? "It's not about forgiving him," Claire says finally, untying the apron. "It's about not letting him take anything else from us." Maggie's smile is proud and a little sad. "That's my girl." The walk to the park feels both too long and too short. Each step brings Claire closer to a confrontation she's been simultaneously dreading and craving. The evening air carries the scent of approaching autumn, crisp and full of possibility. Or maybe that's just her mind playing tricks, trying to find meaning in the meaningless. Music grows louder as they approach, something local and acoustic, the kind of thing that would have had her father tapping his foot behind the counter. Strings of lights crisscross between trees, casting warm pools of light across faces both familiar and strange. Booths line the paths, offering everything from Mrs. Henderson's famous apple pies to handmade crafts from the senior center. And there, near the center of it all, stands Ethan Clark. He's shed his corporate polish, dressed in jeans and a simple button-down with the sleeves rolled up. He looks smaller somehow, more human. His eyes scan the crowd restlessly, and Claire knows the exact moment he spots her. His whole body goes still, like prey sensing a predator. The crowd parts as Claire approaches, conversations dying mid-sentence. She feels the weight of their attention, the collective held breath of a community waiting to see what happens next. Maggie's presence at her back steadies her, gives her the strength to keep walking until she stands before him. Claire. Her name falls from his lips like a prayer, or maybe a plea. You thought this would fix everything? The words come out sharp, cutting through the evening air. That throwing money at the problem would make me forget what you did? Ethan's face pales, but he holds his ground. His Adam's apple bobs as he swallows hard. I didn't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to try to make it right. Make it right? Claire's laugh is bitter. You lied to me. Used me. The whole time you were pretending to help, you were just... What? Gathering intel? Setting me up for the perfect corporate takeover? No. The word bursts from him with surprising force. I mean, yes, at first. But then I got to know you, and the diner, and this community. He runs a hand through his hair, messing up its careful styling. I made mistakes. Huge ones. And I'll carry that with me forever. But I'm done lying, Claire. I resigned. I walked away from all of it. The raw honesty in his voice catches her off guard. Tears prick at the corners of her eyes, hot and unwelcome. You destroyed my family. My father didn't deserve what happened to him. You're right. Ethan's voice cracks. He didn't, and neither do you. The truth of it hangs between them, heavy as storm clouds. Claire studies his face, searching for any trace of the smooth-talking businessman who walked into her diner all those weeks ago. Instead, she finds only anguish and regret etched into the lines around his eyes. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. The words taste like ashes in her mouth. Ethan nods, a short, jerky motion. I understand. He takes a step back, preparing to leave, and something in Claire's chest constricts painfully. Claire, look around. Maggie's voice breaks through the tension. Claire turns, following her friend's gesture. The crowd has grown, filling the park with faces she's known her whole life. Tom steps forward, still in his mail carrier uniform. We're here because of you, Claire. Because of this diner. Don't let his mistakes take that away from you. Other voices join in, a chorus of support that threatens to overwhelm her. Your coffee got me through my first year of teaching, Jackie calls out. Frank helped me when John passed, Mrs. Hargrove adds quietly. You've done the same. Claire's gaze sweeps across the gathering. These people aren't just customers. They're the heartbeat of her community. Every face holds a memory. Celebrations marked by pie and coffee, a comfort found in late-night conversations, friendship offered without question or price. Her eyes lock onto Ethan again. He stands at the edge of the crowd now, defeat written in every line of his body. The sight stirs something in her chest, something that feels uncomfortably like understanding. Stay. The word surprises them both. Ethan's eyes widen, hope and disbelief warring across his features. Claire, I'm not ready to forgive you. Her voice shakes, but her words are firm. But maybe I'm ready to try. Ethan's breath catches audibly. That's all I need. His voice breaks with relief and something deeper, something that makes Claire's heart stutter in her chest. She takes his hand, ignoring the whispers and scattered applause from the crowd. His palm is warm against hers, slightly rough, not the manicured smoothness she expected from a corporate suit. It feels real, human. The tension breaks like a summer storm, the crowd surging back into motion. The local band strikes up a livelier tune, and people rush to the booths with renewed energy. Claire watches as Mrs. Henderson's pies disappear, as raffle tickets sell by the handful, as her community comes together to save the heart of their town. Maggie appears at her side, wrapping her in a fierce hug. You did it. Your father would be proud. We did it, Claire corrects her, still holding Ethan's hand. All of us. As the evening winds down, the fundraiser totals are counted. Claire stands with Ethan and Maggie as the numbers are announced. Enough to clear the debts, enough for new equipment, enough to give Benson's diner a fresh start. Tears of relief spring to her eyes, and this time she doesn't fight them. The days that follow bring change, measured in small victories and careful steps forward. Fresh paint brightens the diner's walls, and new equipment hums in the kitchen. The ancient coffee maker is retired with ceremony, replaced by something that doesn't require Claire's daily prayers to function. But the real work happens in the quiet moments, in shared glances across the counter as Ethan helps with the breakfast rush, in careful conversations over coffee after closing when the night feels safe enough for truth, in the way Claire's shoulders gradually lose their defensive set when he's near. One evening, after the last customer leaves, they sit across from each other in a booth. The silence between them is comfortable now, but Claire breaks it anyway. I'm scared to trust you. The admission costs her, but she forces it out. Ethan meets her gaze steadily. I know. I'll prove to you that you can. The honesty in his voice reassures her more than any grand gesture could. Claire finds herself smiling, small but real. Let's take this one step at a time. One step at a time, Ethan agrees, grinning back. The weight of guilt finally seems to lift from his shoulders, replaced by something lighter, something like hope. Weeks pass and Benson's diner transforms. The walls shine with fresh paint, the neon sign glows steadily instead of flickering, and new equipment fills the kitchen with efficient hums and whirs. But the heart of the place remains unchanged. The same warmth, the same welcome, the same sense of coming home. The breakfast rush fills the booths now, laughter and conversation bouncing off walls that no longer show their age. Claire moves through it all with renewed energy, her father's photograph still watching from behind the counter. But his smile doesn't haunt her anymore. Instead, it reminds her of everything worth fighting for. Ethan finds his own place in the community, using his business expertise to help other local entrepreneurs navigate their challenges. The cold, calculating businessman is gone, replaced by someone who understands the value of connection over profit. Someone who measures success not in dollars, but in the strength of the bonds he builds. They stand side by side behind the counter one morning, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of promise. No longer burdened by secrets or shame, they face the future together. Their relationship grows slowly, carefully, built on a foundation of hard-won truth and mutual respect. You know, Claire says, pouring coffee with practiced ease, Dad would have liked who you became. Ethan's hand finds hers, squeezing gently. I like who I became too. The diner hums around them, alive with possibility. Through the window, they watch their town wake up, ready for another day of coffee, conversation, and community. The past shaped them, but it no longer defines them. One step at a time, they move forward together, writing their own story in coffee stains and shared smiles, in trust rebuilt and love hard-won. The morning light streams through clean windows, casting long shadows that stretch toward a future neither of them could have imagined alone. Behind the counter, Frank Benson's photograph catches the light, his smile warm and knowing. The diner lives on, not just as his legacy, but as a testament to the power of second chances and the courage it takes to offer them. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.